I arrived in Manila on a humid March evening, carrying only a single suitcase, a 2-year contract to teach English, and a complete lack of understanding of what I was getting myself into. My hometown remained thousands of miles to the north, cold, geometrically ideal, orderly, where people on the streets habitually bury their eyes in their coat collars and strictly respect personal boundaries. Manila, on the other hand, greeted me with a stifling heat, the thick smell of exhaust fumes, spicy street food, and an endless symphony of honking jeepneys. In those first few hours, I felt as though I had landed on a completely different planet, where the laws of chaos had been elevated to an absolute. But amid this madness, there was something I was entirely unprepared for: the smiles. Not polite token smirks, but genuine open gazes from people making their way through endless traffic jams. My new place of work and life became a middle school in a small community in the province of Bulacan, not far from the capital. On my very first day of school, I stood before a classroom where 40 pairs of dark, attentive eyes observed me with a complex mix of childhood curiosity, respect, and noticeable embarrassment. My impeccably planned lesson outlines, strict European methodologies, and academic punctuality collapsed within the first 20 minutes. "Sir," a girl in the front row said softly and shyly, "we don't understand your accent. It is too fast." My perfect grammatical English turned out to be too fast, too dry, and too foreign for children accustomed to the soft, melodious, almost musical flow of Tagalog. That evening, I left the school for my rented room with a heavy sense of utter professional and personal failure. However, the next morning, upon entering the classroom, I found two ripe golden mangoes on my desk, along with a neat note written in a child's handwriting. "Welcome to our school, sir. Don't worry, we will learn together." This was the very first and perhaps most important lesson the Philippines taught me. In a culture where the ancient concept of pakikisama, the ability to get along with others, preserve harmony, and support those close to you, is valued incomparably higher than formal discipline and dry hierarchy, a teacher is not merely an abstract conveyor of knowledge, but a true member of a large community. I quickly realized that I had to completely restructure my approach to life and work. I began to consciously slow down my speech, learn basic Tagalog phrases, and allow my students to laugh genuinely, including at my own inevitable language mistakes. Gradually, my life began to acquire its own slow, measured rhythm. I grew accustomed to the loud clatter of motorized tricycles outside my window at 5 in the morning, to the village roosters crowing at all hours without regard for the clock, and to the fact that a sudden tropical downpour during the monsoon season could turn an ordinary street into a rushing river in just 10 minutes. Most importantly, I began to see a surprising depth behind the external simplicity of local provincial life. My students, many of whom grew up in very modest, sometimes impoverished conditions, came to class with an incredible, inexhaustible supply of optimism. Their ability to find genuine joy in the simplest things amazed me every day. When the power was cut off at school once again due to the intense heat or scheduled maintenance work, we didn't cancel the lesson. We simply moved the entire class under a gazebo in the courtyard, and the children enthusiastically read aloud in the natural daylight, turning their faces to the warm sea breeze. By the end of the first year, I realized with surprise that I no longer felt like an outsider here. The elderly vendor at the small family-run sari-sari store around the corner already remembered by heart that I drank my coffee without sugar, and my neighbors hesitated to invite me to every family celebration, where the main feature was always a karaoke microphone. I learned to sing the famous song Anak reasonably well, albeit with a noticeable accent, which caused genuine delight among the residents of our barangay. The Philippines was slowly but surely removing my years of stiffness, emotional reservedness, and perpetual rush. This country was teaching me to live in the present, to find joy in the current moment, and to stop endlessly worrying about things I had no power to change. I realized that my journey was only beginning, and the threads binding me to this green island were growing stronger with every new sunrise. The second year of my stay in the Philippines became a period of final reevaluation of my entire previous life and a deep immersion into the very essence of the local culture. I decided to transfer to an even more remote school, located in a small coastal village on the island of Leyte, to see authentic, deep provincial life, untouched by mass tourism and Western influence with my own eyes. Here, life flowed according to entirely different, almost primal laws of natural rhythm. Time completely lost its rigid linearity. It was replaced by the famous concept of Filipino time, which initially gave my European punctuality a mild shock, but gradually came to seem like the only true way to exist in a hot tropical climate. Why run and stress when the scorching sun will force you to slow your pace anyway? Why worry about being half an hour late when the main thing is the joy of finally meeting and being able to talk peacefully? It was in Leyte that I truly understood the profound meaning of the ancient tradition of Bayanihan. In former times, it meant the custom of an entire village gathering to carry a neighbor's bamboo house on their shoulders to a new location. In modern life, this concept has transformed into an absolute readiness to come to the aid of anyone in distress, regardless of who they are to you. My new fellow teachers surrounded me with genuine care from my very first days. They shared home-cooked food with me, patiently taught me how to eat correctly with my hands on fresh banana leaves during traditional festive Kamayan feasts, and explained the subtle nuances of Philippine social etiquette. I learned that behind the famous Filipino smile often lies not just politeness, but immense inner resilience in the face of life's hardest trials. The real test of endurance for me and our entire barangay came in November, when a destructive typhoon of immense power hit the region. In my entire life, I had never seen anything like it. Whistling winds tore corrugated iron roofs off houses as if they were made of thin paper, and continuous torrential rain turned the village streets into roaring brown rivers in a matter of hours. Our stone school, built on a slight rise, instantly transformed into the main evacuation shelter for dozens of families from the surrounding neighborhoods. For nearly 4 days, we remained completely cut off from the outside world, without electricity, cellular service, and with a very limited supply of drinking water and provisions. It was during these grueling days that I witnessed firsthand what ultimately changed my consciousness and permanently bound my heart to this land. Instead of the expected panic, chaos, or selfish struggle for resources in the flooded corridors of the school, an atmosphere of incredible, almost sacred unity prevailed. Men worked tirelessly around the clock to clear debris and reinforce remaining structures. Women prepared large pots of hot rice porridge, lugao, for everyone present, giving the best portions to children and the elderly. And a young local teacher organized active games and contests for the little ones to distract them from their fear of the storm roaring outside the windows. In the evening, as darkness enveloped the building and only rare dim candles burned, someone produced an old acoustic guitar, and people, many of whom had just lost their homes, possessions, and entire crops, began to sing their favorite national songs, softly, yet with surprising harmony. Sitting on the cold concrete floor in wet clothes, sharing a bowl of rice with my students, I felt something astonishing. I had absolutely no fear. There was only a profound, incomparable sense of absolute belonging to these people, who meet even the cruelest blows of fate with incredible dignity, bright hope, and an unshakable faith in the better. I realized that my former world, with its perpetual material race, social statuses, and the cold loneliness of big cities, had become infinitely foreign to me. Here, among simple fishermen and farmers who shared their last bowl of rice, I had found something far more valuable: genuine human warmth and the true meaning of existence. When the typhoon subsided, we rebuilt our village and school together. I worked alongside the local residents from dawn until dusk, hauling heavy, wet timber, re-roofing damaged roofs, and repainting the walls of my classroom. My hands became calloused, and my skin darkened under the bright sun, but I had never felt so happy and useful in my life. When classes resumed, my students walked into the refreshed classroom. They looked noticeably older, having survived such an ordeal, but their eyes burned with that same unquenchable fire of joy and curiosity. On that day, my official 2-year contract with the International Educational Program came to an end. I faced a choice: pack my suitcase and return to my accustomed, comfortable life back home, or step into the unknown and stay here. But in truth, there was no longer any internal conflict. I understood that my past life was left far behind, and my real future was now forever linked to this green archipelago, where people know how to smile despite any storm. Every weekend after the restoration work, we gathered on the ocean shore. Fishermen brought fresh catches, we lit fires from dry coconut leaves, and grilled fish right over the embers. Beneath the quiet rustle of the surf and the swaying of palm trees, my new friends shared ancient legends about the spirits of the mountains and the ocean, and how their ancestors settled these islands on ancient balangai boats. I listened to their enchanting voices and realized that this land possesses a unique soul that softly yet permanently captivates anyone ready to open their heart to it. My knowledge of the local language became increasingly confident. I could freely joke with the village elders and easily understand the fast conversational speech of the children. I learned to find joy in simple things: the fresh sea breeze after a humid day, the taste of warm steamed rice, a cup of strong local coffee at dawn, and the sincere greetings of every passerby on the street. Philippine culture taught me the most important art: not trying to control absolutely everything around me, but trusting life and moving forward with a light heart. My European friends from the past often wrote letters asking when I would return to a strict career and familiar comforts, but their questions felt like messages from a distant, long-forgotten planet that no longer held any interest for me. The decision to stay in the Philippines forever was not an impulsive or spontaneous impulse. It had matured within me with every falling monsoon rain, with every lesson I internalized, and with every day lived on this blessed land. When my contract with the international program officially ended, I applied for a local teaching license and decided to remain working in the same provincial school on a permanent basis. My family back home struggled for a long time to understand this step. To them, the Philippines seemed like a distant, impoverished, and dangerous country known only from alarming news reports about typhoons and volcanic eruptions. They couldn't see what I saw every day, a rich spiritual culture where family values are not just a catchy slogan, but the unbreakable foundation of society. The years flew by surprisingly fast, filling my life with profound meaning. I learned Tagalog fluently enough to joke in class, write teaching materials, and present reasoned arguments at faculty meetings. My students no longer saw me as a white foreigner or a Kano. To them, I became simply Sir, a teacher who believes in their potential, teaching them not only grammar rules, but also confidence in their own abilities in the face of the wider world. Many of my very first graduates left to study at universities in Manila or even went abroad to work, but whenever they returned home for holidays, their first stop was always the school to give me a hug, share their achievements, and bring a traditional gift, a pack of dried mangoes or dried fish. It was here, amidst school days and community work, that I met the love of my life, Maricel, a talented and incredibly kind mathematics teacher at our school. Our wedding was a true embodiment of the finest Philippine traditions. A huge festive table featuring a golden roasted lechon, hundreds of guests from across the entire barangay, live music, laughter, and joyful dancing until dawn. For the first time in my conscious life, I felt that I had found a real, permanent home, a place where I am loved and accepted unconditionally, with all my flaws and quirks. Today, sitting on the cozy veranda of our small wooden house overlooking endless green rice paddies and distant blue hills, I often recall that confused, reserved young man with a single suitcase who landed in humid Manila many years ago. He was seeking temporary adventure and new experiences, but instead, he found himself and his true calling. The Philippines taught me to face life's storms with a genuine smile, to value simple human connection far more than material wealth, and to understand that a real home is not just a point on a map, but the people who surround and love you. Gray hair is now beginning to show at my temples, and my own children speak three languages fluently and naturally, easily jumping between Tagalog, English, and Russian. Every morning I walk to school along that same familiar dusty road, greeting every neighbor I pass, hearing the accustomed warm calls, "Magandang umaga, sir!" I know that many more strong typhoons, tropical heat waves, and daily challenges lie ahead. But I also know with certainty that I will never, under any circumstances, regret the choice I made. I arrived on these islands as a stranger, but the Philippines gave me something infinitely greater. It gave me a true heart that now beats in unison with this beautiful, sunny, and wonderful country. I stayed here forever, not because I was lost in life, but because it was here that I finally came home. With each passing year, my understanding of the Filipino soul grew deeper and more multifaceted. I began to actively participate in the life of our local barangay, helping to organize annual fiestas, basketball tournaments, and charitable drives for families in need. Basketball in the Philippines is not merely a sport, but a true national passion that unites people of all ages and backgrounds. I personally enjoyed stepping onto improvised courts alongside local youths, forgetting about fatigue and age differences. The residents of our village gradually came to view me not just as a teacher, but as a reliable mentor and friend whom they could always approach for sound advice or support during tough times. My wife, Maricel, gave me two wonderful children who grew up under this warm sun, absorbing the best of two distinct cultures. From an early age, they grew accustomed to the fact that their family consisted not just of parents and grandparents, but our entire close-knit barangay, where every neighbor was always ready to watch over a child, treat them to fresh fruit, and share in their joy. Watching my children laughingly run along the beach, fly homemade paper kites, and learn to respect their elders by performing the traditional mano po gesture, I felt an incredible sense of deep harmony and peace. My own father, who had long viewed my move with skepticism and misunderstanding, decided to fly out to visit us several years later. I will never forget the day he first set foot across our threshold. For the first 3 days, he walked around looking bewildered, unable to comprehend how anyone could live at a pace lacking European structure and precise schedules. But by the end of the week, the genuine hospitality of my colleagues, the warmth of Maricel and her family, the ceaseless laughter of the children, and the ambient atmosphere of universal goodwill melted his heart. When the time came for him to fly back, my reserved, stern father embraced me with tears in his eyes and softly admitted that he now fully understood why I chose to remain here forever. The Philippine land possesses a unique gift for healing wounded souls and showing a person that very little is needed for true happiness. Sincerity, the love of those close to you, the ability to rejoice in every new day, and peace in one's heart. Over the years, I have seen the world around us change and new technologies arrive, but one thing remains constant: the unquenchable light in the eyes of the Filipino people, their capacity to preserve hope and share their last meal even in the hardest of times. Every morning, as I enter my classroom and see 40 pairs of shining eyes belonging to my students, I realize that my life has not been lived in vain. I pass my knowledge on to them, while they continue to teach me the greatest wisdom of all: to be a person with an open and loving heart. My story in the Philippines is not simply the tale of a foreigner who changed his residence. It is the story of a man who found his true homeland, where his soul discovered peace and genuine love. Our home is always open to guests. Beautiful orchids and frangipani bloom in our garden, and the air carries the fresh scent of bamboo and ocean breezes. And whenever my former countrymen ask me if I miss the past, I simply smile in response and shake my head. For it is impossible to miss the past when your present is so abundantly filled with light, meaning, and love.